discipleship in your community. And all you had to do is write a one-page paper at the end and demonstrate how you use the funds and that it could be tied to evangelization and discipleship. And that was one of our, in my recollection, one of our most effective and well-attended parish missions when we had Deacon Ralph Coyle come out. Part of the way that we funded some of that. And now he works by donation only, but we felt compelled to make sure that he left with a certain amount because that's how he makes his living. And so we used some of that diocesan evangelization grant money to help put that event on. So now this is even bigger, where $3 million endowment, where you would end up having parishes that want to be doing evangelization, they want to be doing faith formation and discipleship training. They will be able to do that with the help of some of these evangelization endowments. And the bishop is huge on what I mentioned earlier, missionary discipleship. In fact, even here, I remember when I first came, I don't know when they took it down. Maybe it's still there and I just forget about it. But they had like that barometer thingamajiggy that might have been for the Father Alvaro Trust Fund. So you think of that like, well, so when it's fully read, we're done raising money. So you think of that terms in the spiritual sense, like in our discipleship. Sometimes we the church in recent years has started talking about like encounters. So we encounter, and then what happens? Well, we make a decision to become a disciple. Well, what happens once we're a disciple? Well, we're done. No, the church has what's called the Great Commission, the Gospel of Matthew. Go and make disciples. So disciples make disciples. In fact, looking around the room, some of your kids have been involved in this and still are, going out of our community and making disciples. And the bishop is huge on this, transitioning from just becoming disciples to becoming missionary disciples, to be able to help our brothers and sisters next door, as well as those in our surrounding parishes. And so these funds will certainly help that. Distance learning and ministry training centers. We have a large geographic region. Believe me, I went to Hillsdale a couple weeks ago. Right, Janae? Where's Janae? Yeah, Hillsdale. I was excited to go. I've never been down there. Janae went to Hillsdale College. So I was like, Hillsdale? That's in our diocese. I wanted to skip across the border and get some fireworks, so that close to Indiana. So we have a large geographic region in our diocese, and so the hope is to set up some regional training and ministry centers where maybe there's not something that fits your schedule or floats your boat or whatever, or is where you're at in your own faith journey that's being offered at your own parish, but maybe at the regional training and discipleship facility, there would be something like a class that would fit your schedule better, or a men's group, or women's group, those type of things. And so right now we have a room downtown that they finally just updated, and it actually has like a screen on the wall and Wi-Fi, like we're modern times. But they're hoping to set some regional locations up where we can have these. And there's also talk about actually having an institute, because part of the thing is we want to make sure that the people that are working in our parishes, all of our parishes throughout the diocese, are well-trained and formed as well. But a lot of times, the cost can be inhibitive. And so we want to make sure that they can afford to be trained to then come and form disciples in our own parish. So some of these regional training centers would be able to serve that need as well. So caring for our priests, I keep looking up there, but the real meat is in your trifold. So caring for our priests, in fact, is awesome. I just met with Father Matt Fiwa, one of our own, out in DeWitt a couple weeks ago. This is really a no-brainer. We have to care for our priests. And also, something that I learned is priests, and I don't know the dates exactly, but priests of the older generations were never told to be putting money away for their retirement, because back in the day when we had a ton of priests, it was just understood that they would be taken care of. And so we need to take care of our priests. It's actually in canon law that the bishop has to take care of the temporal, the physical, material needs of the priests. And so that's really doesn't really require a lot of explanation other than, spelling out the money that would go towards that. And then the seminary and education formation endowment. So in our parish, we haven't had a parishioner become a diocesan priest since, was it 1976? I think around 1976, Father Dennis Spitzley. But we've had a ton of young men discern the vocation and actually go to seminary for a while, which they discerned that they weren't called to the priesthood. But A, that costs money, and B, their example is setting the witness for the young men that will actually call the priesthood below them. And so Because I actually heard from somebody years ago, like, why don't they just become a priest? But it's actually a discernment process. I actually know some people who were priests who are not priests anymore because maybe they discern the vocation wrong. So discerning is huge, but it takes some time. It takes entering the seminary, and the seminaries cost money to run. And so we want to be able to encourage those young people who are discerning vocations. We've had several young ladies from the surrounding communities, as well as our own discern religious life, and some of them have entered religious life too. So we want to be able to actually support vocations and what it costs to support vocations. And then the bottom, I think we're wrapping up. The bottom part is, and actually I can let one of you guys explain this a little more, but you've all heard, we're not going to have the DSA this year. But I can speak to the cathedral a little bit. The needs in our cathedral are actually significantly more than the $1 million. The $1 million are basically to keep the cathedral open, up and running, that type of thing. If you've been to our cathedral, as opposed to maybe some of the neighboring diocese cathedrals, you can imagine it would cost a little bit more than $1 million to spruce that up. But really, the bishop's just putting $1 million in because we need to have the ongoing operation of the cathedral. And so that's a worthwhile investment as well. All of us have a cathedral, and that's the official seat of the bishop and his authority. And so we want to support his cathedral.
One thing I really like about the diocesan component is you notice it's a lot of endowments. So the endowment to help parents pay for Catholic school education, the endowment for Catholic charities, the endowment for the new evangelization, the endowment for the 2 levels of seminary. The idea here would be that you don't spend the principal of this money, that you just spend the interest that kicks out. It's money that perpetually kicks out, so, we shouldn't have to be doing this again in 20 years, right? This really is taking care of long-term needs. It's money that can't be spent, a lot of this. The biggest component, comes back to the parishes, and I just want to go how it's structured for the parishes. You've got this at your table as well. Our goal is $937,756. The way that goal was figured is the way that many of the parishes were figured. It was a standard way of figuring a parish's assessment. That was our collection for the fiscal year 14-15. So from July 1, 2014 to June 30th, 2015, that was the money brought in from Sunday and Holy Day collections. And again, that was the standard way of figuring an assessment for a parish. You see on your sheet up to 100%, everything up to 100%, the parish keeps 35% of that, of what they raise. The diocese gets 65%. You look at the range from 100% to 120%. In that range, the ratio flips. Anything in that range, now the parish keeps 65, the diocese gets 35. And then if you go over 120%, then everything in that range comes back to the parish. I'm hopeful that we can get to those high levels where everything comes back. And the good news is, this is a good day for the campaign. We went over 80%. So we're at about 81.5%, with well under 10% of the families giving. Well under. So we're really on pace to get to a place where we can raise a lot of money for the parish as well as taking care of the needs of the diocese. I've got another slide up there that shows you how incentivized this is to go over. So you see at 100%, if we hit goal, our goal of 937,000, we'd get back 328,000, which is a lot of money. But you look at as you go up, because we start getting more and more of the money, the higher the percentage you go, you can see how dramatically it jumps for the parish. Whereas at 100%, it's 328,000 we get back. At 200%, if we were to go there, which on your screen, not on your sheet, you can see 200%, even though that's twice, it's 1.2 million. So you can see just how much it jumps once you start getting over 100%. So what do we want to do with the money that we raise then? As a parish council, finance council, we talked about how we could do a lot of smaller projects like windows and just upkeep of the buildings and such, which we thought would be great. But we thought, you know, you don't get a chance as a nonprofit to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars very often. And so we thought this would be a time to look at our long-term capital needs and to try to take care of some of those. So you can see on that sheet, the bottom number is the 937 that is our goal. The number above that is the 328 that we get if we're right at goal. We thought, well, we want to take care of long-term needs. We should do a few short-term things so that they're done immediately, so we don't have to wait, 2-3 years till all the money comes in, or 4 years. So the small things we put up there is we thought the church bathroom certainly could use renovation. Hot water would be lovely. And we thought maybe with that $15,000, maybe to do these bathrooms too. We also put just a tiny bit, half of a percent of that $328,000 in the Miller Trust Fund. So you say, well, why such a small amount? Well, all it is it's just an amount to raise awareness that the Miller Trust Fund is there, so that as we give out our promotional materials, people see Miller and they're reminded that they can give a planned gift to it. The big thing that we want to focus on for our fundraising is a capital improvement fund. So you can see that almost all the money raised goes there. And then if we go over goal, that's what we want to pour the money into. So what do we want to do with this capital improvement fund? Well, we've got three priorities we want to hit. The first one has to do with the school. We feel like we've got real space issues with the school, and by God's grace, it looks like more space issues are coming in future years as our projections, our enrollments, even next year is going to be a decent amount higher. We feel like the gym is the only indoor big space we've got, so there's a ton of pressure on that. So we thought we could take a lot of pressure off of that if we had another larger type room. So we thought to build a freestanding cafeteria, which would free up the gym in the middle of the day, give us another room. As you probably know, right now music, right now after school care are done in the library. We'd love to have another space to do that. We'd love to have a space where anytime the kids make noise where they're bothering the classroom next to them, that we could just send them off to one of these big places so that they don't have to do that. We also thought that could be great in December when we have all the requests for rentals. You could have 2 rentals at the school at once because you could have the gym and the cafeteria. With the school, we also thought the kitchen is small for a lot of our events. So we thought we'd love to expand kitchen. And if you've been in the school, you know we've got real storage issues, right? The locker rooms have been used as storage rooms for cleaning supplies for probably the last decade. And if you've ever been in the storage rooms next to the stage, you know how jam-packed those are. We've got up front that you can look at later, just blueprints that were done. They're just samples. This was done by Jerry Miller of what such an expansion could look like. This was done by Walt Palin. If we ever got to building, we'd want to get a committee together of, not just architects and builders, right? We'd want to get the teachers, we'd want to get people, a lot of people are more on the inside, but of course we needed to get prints together so that we could bid out the project to see how much that type of square footage might cost. So Jerry Miller and Gary Hingspa worked together with local subcontractors, and they're confident that they could do this project at current prices for under $517,000. So with about a 3 to 5% addition for each year that you don't build. So we figure to be safe on that, and to do the bathroom renovation, to do the Miller Trust Fund addition, we'd probably have to hit 135% of our goal to fully fund that project. So we got a ways to go, but we're off to a really quick start. If we were able to go beyond that, because we want to be transparent, we want to be as transparent as we can possibly be. If we go beyond 135, what we'd love to do then is to turn to this building, because we feel like this is, it gets so much use. Of course, it turns 30 next year. We thought there's a lot of things we could do to freshen it up. You know, just even the entrance, if you just even repainted it. But there were other things you could certainly do there. The bathrooms, we get a lot of complaints about. We'd love to redo that. Of course, the chairs, we get even more complaints about, so we'd love to get new chairs, or at least just get coverings for the chairs, get new tables, maybe get some more energy efficient appliances for the kitchen. We'd love to get the sound, the audio visual better in here, more permanent, more user-friendly. If there were ways we could deaden the sound in here, because as you know, when the music's going at weddings, we have a lot of events, it just is, it's really hard to hear. So a lot of things we'd love to kind of spruce up the building. I just think if we had a committee together, even things like the bathrooms, you know, you wouldn't have to spend much money at all to make it look more like kind of a banquet type setting. You know, given all the receptions it hosts. I mean, there are just a lot of things. If you had people who think that way, and I am not one of those people, right? We'd have to have a committee of folks that know what looks good, you know. We'd probably ban celibate guys from being on that. And then if we went way over, you know, if we did really well, one of the things we thought we'd do probably easily the biggest expense is we thought it'd be great to have more room in here. So many of our events are so crowded. We'd love to just expand out Hall A. You know, maybe just another 1,000 square feet or so. I don't know that our weddings can get a ton bigger, but even if you could fit a few more people and you could spread out the tables a little bit more, that would make a big difference. And it'd all be open space, so it wouldn't be that big of an expense relatively. You know, certainly all the hall stuff would be a small expense compared to the school, for sure.